Thank you for being with us today, and we hope you're enjoying the great content put together by Trio Maryland. Our last session of today is a day in the life of a transplant surgeon. Unfortunately, our speaker, Dr. Silke Niederhaus, has a transplant this morning and is unable to join us. However, for this very reason, she did pre-record her presentation, and I will be sharing it with you today. For those of you who do not know Dr. Niederhaus, she is an associate professor of surgery at the University of Maryland School of Medicine. Dr. Niederhaus specializes in kidney and pancreas transplantation, laparoscopic and single port donor nephrectomy, and dialysis access. Dr. Niederhaus is herself a transplant recipient twice over. So let's go ahead and share with you her presentation.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Silke Niederhaus. I'm one of the transplant surgeons at University of Maryland. I'm also Associate Dean for Faculty Affairs and Professional Development. On top of that, I'm a transplant recipient. I've had 2 kidney transplants in 1988 and 2019. And today I'll be talking to you all about a day in the life of a transplant surgeon. So my first disclaimer is that this is a summary of my experience. That obviously my experience as a transplant surgeon is not universally applicable. I guess I should also say I'm a kidney transplant surgeon, so I don't usually transplant livers or hearts or lungs or other organs. And I think, my colleagues in those fields may have somewhat different days. And then my first question when I was given the title for what to talk about, I was wondering, well, what day do you want me to talk about? So I thought I'd start with an easy one, and you can see here, this was during spring break. It's clearly labeled in the calendar as spring break. You see that even on spring break, some meetings still keep popping up on my calendar, even though I try to make them go away, but my watch keeps alerting me that I have a meeting. But spring break was a nice day. We actually went skiing in Colorado with some friends. You can see my lovely husband, my lovely son. So sometimes I like to work hard, but I also like to play hard. And so skiing is one of my fun things. And as far as I'm concerned, it could be snowing in winter every day, so long as it's sunny. And I don't have to work. So then I went on and I was like, okay, well, let me pull a different week, one where I actually was at work. And I went a few weeks back and just picked a random week, right? And it starts with Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So you can see that my calendar works for me the whole week. The Delaware Kidney Walk was something from the National Kidney Foundation. I didn't make it to, but I wanted to know that that was going on that day in case I didn't have any other plans. And then you can kind of go from there. So then I thought, okay, well, if I'm trying to explain to you what I do in my life during the day, let's start with an easy day. And probably one of the easiest is Tuesday. And Tuesday, as you can see here, is pretty blank. So it's very confusing. If you don't know, it maybe look like that I'm not doing anything, but I am. So when we start with Tuesday, Tuesdays are my most consistent days. I usually go to the Eastern Shore and work at the hospital there in Easton. On the 1st, 3rd, and 5th Tuesdays, I wake up at 5 in the morning, leave work for work around 5:45, and arrive in Easton around 7. So it's quite a drive. I'll often do multiple dialysis access operations there, right? So that day I had 6 operations scheduled. 4 ultimately were done. 1 patient didn't show up. 1 patient canceled because they were sick. So you never know what you're going to get. And then I was seeing patients in between my operations, right? So some of those patients unfortunately have to wait because, well, I can't operate any faster. And if an operation is more difficult or more complicated than I thought it would be, sometimes that just takes more time. Not much I can do other than stay with the patient, finish that, and then go to the next thing. In between all of that, I try to respond to all sorts of emails or other chart notifications that I get. And so that day I left for work probably around 4:30. If I got home by 6, I was expecting to come home closer to 8. So look at the other Tuesdays, right? I wake up a little later around 6. Sometimes I have time to exercise a little bit, leave for work around 7 or 7:30, get there around 8:30 or 8:45. And usually that's just a day where I see clinic patients in the morning. Starting soon, hopefully, we'll be going to another afternoon clinic on the way home. Again, I, check all my emails and other messages that I get in between. And then occasionally I'm able to attend other meetings that are on Zoom or other things on Tuesdays. So Tuesdays are reasonably straightforward. So let's get more complicated. Um, I think the other thing when you look at the schedule is that for me, every workday starts at a different time. So there's really not a lot of consistency in terms of, I always get up at 5 and then I do this and then I do that and then I do that. And I know some of my colleagues are much more routine oriented. I have on my phone, as you can see, multiple different alarms set up. And, I just every night before I go to bed, figure out which alarm I want the next morning and how soon I need to get up. And sometimes it changes. If I'm more tired, I'll try to get up as late as possible. If I really think that I haven't exercised much, I get up earlier to just try to fit that in. All right, going on to Monday, right? Monday, I was really looking forward to attending a meeting made for faculty at the School of Medicine, right? We also do teaching. We teach other students how to become doctors. And I was really looking forward to attending an afternoon meeting to become a better teacher. In any case, I had marked the day off so that nobody would schedule any conflicting meetings. So here in the morning, I went to morning rounds. We do sit down rounds nowadays. I left for work around 7:15, checked some emails, checked on who was inpatient, checked in with the team. Then I started working because you see there's a 2 o'clock meeting right here. We call it the ART meeting or at-risk transplant, where I get to look through about 75 to 100 charts every week and try to figure out which of our transplant patients may be having a struggle, may be currently sick, may need a little more attention in order for them to keep doing well. So that takes most of my morning, usually 2 to 3 hours of just sitting with the computer, right? In between, you can see here, I have a couple emails to reply to, a couple of other meetings to attend, et cetera, et cetera. At noontime, the MELA actually started, and I managed to go to one meeting during which I kept getting multiple messages, right, that I was missing this meeting. So it goes, can only be one place at a time. But it results in most of us having to always prioritize constantly, right? We always, every minute that we spend at work, have to make a choice of I should be here and I should be here. And sometimes I should be in a third place at the same time as well. And every day you have to go, okay, what's the most important today? And you always have the feeling that you should be somewhere else and that you're missing something. So it's a little bit stressful. So I was happy to make it to that noon meeting. I was hoping to be there all afternoon. It turns out that I was having computer issues that day and I needed to come back and sort those out. Then I came back for my 2 o'clock meeting, made it for that meeting because I had to leave that meeting. There was nobody else who could do it that day. And then on a little bit last minute notice, there was a division meeting added, so I was not able to go back to MELA for anything, but I had to do that. And then I finished the day by being invited to television, live television with my excellent kidney donor, whose fault it is that I'm still around giving this talk today. No, she donated her kidney as part of an exchange, and so we were on TV together, and I ended up going home sometime closer to 8 o'clock, 8:30, right? So that was a long day. When we go on, skipping to Wednesday, because you already know what I do on Tuesdays. On Wednesday, in my dean role, right, I get to attend these executive committee meetings. So that started at 7:30, went till 9, maybe 9:15. I had to give a presentation, had made that previously. I'm also on call. So in that room, there's not good cell phone reception. So people were trying to call me with organ offers, and we'll get there later. Sometimes I put notes to self on the calendar, like following up on certain things. When I came back from that meeting, I went to my office, right? Following up on emails, and then reviewing organ offers and other things. And so the day kind of kept going. But I looked at Wednesday and I was like, wow, look at this. I've got time. I was very excited, right? 7:30 meeting, left the house at 6:45, saw that I had an evening meeting. So I was like, okay, well, it's gonna be a long day. Again, but I was like, oh, at least I have breaks, I have free time today. So I started catching up on my email when I got to the office, and more emails kept coming. Wednesday was crazy on emails. So by the end of the day, I had really had not made any progress. I was just sort of level and keeping up. I managed to sneak out at 5 o'clock to spend some time with family. I cut that very last meeting short because I was getting tired from working long hours that week. So I spent Wednesday updating some research protocols and submitting those back to the IRB, right? I checked and dealt with lab results that came through in Epic that I had to address. There were some faculty affairs issues going on, right? In terms of professionalism. So I had to read what was going on, think about it, and reply and attend meetings. There's always some kind of training update or credentialing update. You have to do your HIPAA training every year, and you have to double check that you're trained on compliance, and you have to train on violence prevention in the workplace, and you have to train on fires and all these other things. They keep popping up throughout the year. You're never without something looming over your head that's due. We're working on leadership training and leadership updates. I was spending some time on Wednesday beginning to work on this PowerPoint presentation. Students keep emailing, right? And they have questions about the work and the research they're doing. And I reviewed several CT scans. So I did get work done. It just, as it keeps coming, you feel like you're getting it done, but you're never quite done because there's always more. In the meantime, all of Wednesday, if you look a few slides back, right, there's a little thing up top that says call. And so call means that you're basically getting interrupted the whole time. So you get phone calls or text messages from the organ procurement organization and from your own coordinators to figure out if you want to transplant the organ, whatever it is, kidney, liver, pancreas, my case, mostly kidney and pancreas. So, and then you have to figure out if the recipient that the allocation system says it goes to is actually going to do well with that transplant. So sometimes we get scenarios like a 66-year-old donation after cardiac death kidney from a 5'1", 123-pound, I call them little old lady because it's LOL and that's fun. And in this case, the kidney was in warm ischemic time for 55 minutes. That's a long time to be warm without blood flow. Already had a creatinine somewhat elevated at 2.3, right? This donor had diabetes and high blood pressure. They died of a stroke. Their KDPI, which is, I call it gobbledygook for like how long the kidney may last, is 94%. So the chance of it lasting 1 year is like just under 90%. But my recipient that they wanted to give this to was a 29-year-old, tall, strong built football player type person, right? And when you take a little kidney and you look at that, this 29-year-old needs an organ that's going to last a lot longer, right? So this patient had, for example, maybe a lot of waiting time or something. And then you have to really think of, is this the best choice for this patient? In this case, maybe it wasn't. So you spend all day sort of, digging through deep details, trying to make sure that the donor didn't have cancer that was undiagnosed or some other problem that would present a danger to the recipient. All right, Thursday. You see how I'm talking. It's a bustling week. Thursday, I finally made it to the operating room, right? For a transplant. There are some people that are part of the team. They don't know they're in this presentation, but they're all pretty cool. You can see Thursday morning, I found myself looking ahead at my schedule, still on call. By the way, if things are not on my schedule, I don't know they're there and I will try to fit them in, right? Now you can see here that like, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Now some of this is duplicate, but that's okay, right? And some of it is really just multiple things going on in the meantime, right? So Wednesday, I'm still on call, right? We had morning teaching conferences. So I showed up to work at 6:30, so I leave at 5:45. I had this plan to work on this PowerPoint. That didn't happen. I was busy taking organ offers because I was on call and reviewing 4 or 5 organ offers. Each of them takes about a half an hour if you look at it in detail. In my calendar, patient care is usually pink, so I had an operation to do, right? That day it started, we had planned for 3 hours, but it lasted 5, not 3. Oops, started a half hour late. So with all that happening, I was not able to go to clinic to see this post-op, right? And there are different people scheduling these different things and they just expect you to be everywhere. So all these other things that you see here marked with arrows, because this case lasted a long time, they didn't happen, right? So thankfully I had some nice and friendly colleagues and partners who went to see the post-op, who attended these other meetings, who took care of those types of things. And somehow in the middle of this operation, I found out that there was a set of organs to arrive at 6 o'clock. So for the 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock meeting, I didn't even have time to call and cancel because I was scrubbed in surgery, right? I didn't know it was going to go that. So poor people waited for me and didn't know what was going on. I feel very bad when that happens. I finally finished this operation like around 4:30, where I sat down on my computer, sent apologies to all the things I missed, caught up to all my emails as best as I could, right? And I've managed to finish that just in time for 6 o'clock to head to the operating room, where we were beginning to back table or bench kidneys to put them on the pump, right? Now, this resulted in me missing dinner with a family and out of town. I finally got home at 11:15 and then, slept in between some overnight phone calls. So if you don't like gory things, close your eyes because some of you might love to see what kidneys look like, but this was a set of kidneys from a young donor that we kept together. So this is actually 2 kidneys together coming up. Close your eyes now. If you don't want to see the kidneys, if you want to see them, you can peek. This is like a set of, kidneys from a young donor. You can see here is the aorta, here is the vena cava. This is looking at them from the backside. You see little branches tied off, and this is what we do when we bench clipped off, right? We take off all this extra fatty tissue that you see here, and clean them really up, really good. And we have to do this while the organ stays pretty cool and on ice and in preservation solution. And so here are the ureters that we then connect to the bladder. So this took 4 hours because it's 2 kidneys. And as you can see, everything is like tiny, tiny. The stitch, you can hardly see that it's there. But that's what we do. So Friday morning, I slept what I could, got up or had my alarm set for early enough in the morning, right? In the end, I found out that the transplant wasn't going to be okay to go at 7:30, even though we had a recipient ready because there was a cross-match problem. So we found out, okay, this one recipient that we had admitted and everything was a go for otherwise was not going to be able to get transplanted. So we had to call a different recipient, and we did that at 4 in the morning, I think. And so by the time I came in, I was like, well, if I don't need to do this, I can come into work a little later. So but I was up nonetheless, got the recipient ready around 9 o'clock. We started the operating room at 10:30. I managed to call into this Zoom meeting for a little while before I went to the operating room. All these other plans, again, didn't happen, right? Good other people took care of all those types of things and attending them and making sure they were all okay. You can cover call while you're in the operating room. That was not a problem. That was sort of just note to self that your partner is not available until later in the day. So I was in the operating room from 10:30 till about 4:30. Again, repeated by, I haven't checked my email all day, making sure to talk to other people, saying what I missed throughout the day. And then there's baseball practice on Friday afternoons for my son. So I hustled home, calling my colleague with updates on patients while driving, and made it straight to baseball only because my husband was able to bring me a change of clothes to meet them there. Phew, that was a long week. Let's see, Saturday and Sunday, they also are not always the same, right? So when you talk about a day or a weekend as a transplant surgeon, at the moment, 3 out of 4 weekends I'm off, which is really nice. For a while, I was working every other weekend. When we work as surgeons for a weekend, a Saturday and a Sunday, we're always available, right? So if a patient comes in with severe bleeding for some reason, then we need to go and take that patient to surgery. And if a patient comes in with some other abdominal emergency catastrophe, we need to be ready to go take that patient to surgery. And, if a kidney comes in, we usually have a little bit of a heads up. We find out what time it arrives, and then we can set up the OR, which usually works out unless the patient comes in has high potassium and needs dialysis before the OR and everything gets thrown over. So 1 out of 4 weekends a month, I'm usually working. Sometimes it's 2 out of 4, just varies. But yeah, so this Saturday and Sunday I was off, right? The weather canceled the baseball game, happened to be a rainy weekend. So my family had made plans to do this, that, and the other. And I kind of just went along because I never had time during the week to think about what I wanted to do the weekend. Secretly, most of us probably, even when we're not on call, keep using our phone app to check on how our patients are doing, looking at their vital signs, looking at their lab results, looking at other tests to see, are they doing okay? We always feel like, did we mess something up? Did something not go the way we planned, even though we tried our best? What's the next disaster that's looming? We're always sort of thinking ahead. In the meantime, we try to relax. And then the fourth weekend, when we're on call, then we do this for more patients and for everybody else's patients and just try to manage the best we can. But in the long run, in the short run, I think at any given day, rather be watching a baseball game, especially when they're younger and there are some crazy plays that happen. So we've seen recently such a thing as two kids in a pickle at the same time. Was really crazy and amazing. So I love baseball. I love it even more when I know every single player personally. Thanks for coming today, and I'll be available for questions. Well, I hope I'll be available for questions for those of you who know that on Trio Day I'll be on call. Thank you.
Thank you again for Dr. Niederhaus for sharing her day in a life with all of us today. I want to take a moment to thank Trio Maryland for this great content. And to close out, we're going to welcome back Marty Marin.
Thank you for joining us today for Trio Maryland's third virtual transplant conference. We hope it provided the information you need to make informed decisions and to lead a healthy transplant life. I'd like to express our gratitude to the Trio Maryland Board of Directors, Ashton Conference Planning Professionals, and DRIO. Also, I would like to thank our partners, Infinite Legacy, Johns Hopkins Hospital, and the University of Maryland Medical Center. Thanks to our speakers for sharing their expertise with us. Thank you to the sponsors that continue to support Trio Maryland and all our educational efforts. Trio National, the National Kidney Foundation of Maryland and Delaware, CareDx, Anatomy Gifts Registry, Peak Relief, and the Infinite Legacy. Don't forget to check out our sponsors' website for more details and information. All sessions have been recorded and will be available to view on the Trio Maryland YouTube channel. An email notice will be sent out to you when it is available. Check out our website at www.triomaryland.org to review our calendar for upcoming speakers. Follow us and like us on Facebook and Twitter. I post current transplant information daily, so don't miss out. Check out our YouTube channel for our past presentations. And once again, thank you all again, and thanks for starting your day with us. Have a great weekend.